We really should have learned our lesson the first time. Just when we start to write off the Warriors, they go on a run like we're seeing right now. Before the season started, Warriors fans were given a lot of hope. They were coming into the year healthy and made a massive deal sending out Jordan Poole in exchange for Chris Paul. But that hope really didn't last all that long. Steph hadn't lost his step, which was great news given that's no longer a guarantee season to season with where he is in his career. But he felt like the only player that was reaching their expectations. Klay Thompson was putting together the worst season since his rookie year. During the summer, he had been making claims about how this would be a statement season given his desires for a new max contract. And while he was definitely making a statement, just not the one he was hoping for. Through the first 24 games, where the Warriors were 4 games below 500, he was averaging 16 points, shooting only 41% from the field and 36% from 3. Given his 3-point volume, okay numbers in a vacuum, but not what we expect from Klay Thompson. Now somehow he wasn't even the most disappointing player for the Warriors at that point in the year. Andrew Wiggins, possibly the most instrumental part of their 2002 title run outside of Steph, was putting together one of the bigger collapses we've seen in recent memory. Through those first 24 games, someone that was only a season removed from being named an all-star starter was averaging 12 points, shooting 41% from the field and 26% from 3. Golden State just can't escape these dramatic fall-offs. A year ago it was Jordan Poole, now Klay and Andrew Wiggins. Then their new addition, Chris Paul. He wasn't surprising anyone at 38 years old. He was averaging 9 points and 7 assists to open the year, shooting 41% from the field and 35% from 3. Unsurprisingly, when all this is happening, game after game, their title chances were plummeting. Most struggled to see any kind of path for them to turn things around. Because of that, we started to see a lot of conversations surrounding the team past this current season, as they have a massive payroll unlike anything we've ever seen before. Klay Thompson's set to be a free agent, and most of this core is well into their 30s. In the eyes of many, this was truly the end of this Warriors team as we know it. But then something interesting happened. Something that at the time seemed to only emphasize the disaster that was this season for the Warriors.
Oh man. Well, that's going to be a flagrant.
Draymond gets suspended indefinitely. Could things be going any worse? At least that's how it felt. Little did we all know just how impactful that suspension would go on to be. And when I say impactful, I mean in a good way. In the 16 games Draymond would go on to miss, the Warriors managed to hold things together with a record of 8-8. Now, no one was suggesting that the Warriors had gotten any better without Draymond, but what made that time so impactful is what it unearthed. We didn't see anything too surprising from the core. Klay started to play a little bit better. He was averaging 20 during that time, returning to his usual efficiency. Andrew Wiggins was still struggling. His numbers had actually only gotten worse. It was the young guys for the Warriors that made this time so interesting. Most notably, Jonathan Kuminga. He had upped his averages to 16 points, shooting 56% from the field and 35% from 3. Trace Jackson Davis, their second round selection, saw a massive jump in his role. He was now playing 20 minutes a night, averaging 11, shooting 73% from the field. And their first round selection, Brandon Podziemski, he was starting to look like one of the bigger steals of the draft. He stepped up and was clearly willing and unafraid to buy into any role the team needed. He helped fill the void left by Draymond as a playmaker. He was bringing a grit and energy level defensively that was infectious, and a confidence level offensively you just can't teach. He was averaging 11 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists on really solid efficiency. This was very promising. For so long, this team had been struggling to get valuable production from their youth. It looked like they were starting to turn a new page in that regard, making Draymond's return from suspension very intriguing. A return that would come on January 15th against the Memphis Grizzlies. This game would go on to show just how impactful that suspension was for this Warriors team in the long run. The time without Green allowed them to see enough and have enough confidence to allow Kuminga to hold on to a big role in this rotation. When Draymond returned, Kuminga did go back to the bench, but he was now out there 30 minutes a night compared to the 20, sometimes less he was getting to open the season, and the success he had had over the last few weeks, that didn't slow down. This role coming off the bench only lasted a mere 3 games, a 3-game stretch where he dropped 20, then 25, then 31. He forced the Warriors' hand and was back in the starting lineup where the tear just continued. Somehow, the return of Draymond wasn't hurting Kuminga's momentum. It was expanding on it. From mid-January, when Green returns to present day, the potential we always knew Kuminga had has been unleashed. He's averaging 21 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists, shooting 57% from the field and 39% from 3. Those numbers are exciting. They've been the talk of the town lately. But the results, that's what's even more interesting. For the last few years, the Warriors have been put in a tough spot with Kuminga. Despite all the talent in the world, which we were consistently seeing in little spurts, they struggled to find a place for him in the rotation. It ended up reaching the point that he was pretty much benched entirely for their most recent postseason appearance. The biggest issue with him that they were encountering was just the lack of success the team found with both Draymond and Kuminga on the court together, both offensively and defensively. The most common 5-man stack with the two together last season was alongside Curry, Klay, and DiVincenzo, a group that had an abysmal negative 23.3 net rating and a team worst 132.5 defensive rating. The worst net rated lineup for them a year ago was that same group, just with Poole in place of DiVincenzo. Even Kuminga in place of Draymond with the starters produced a negative 15 net rating. Of all the minutes that Curry, Kuminga, and Draymond played together, the team had a negative 10.7 net rating. Of all the minutes Curry, Klay, and Kuminga played together, a negative 19.5 net rating. It was clear, as talented as Kuminga was, as good as some of the moments were, something just wasn't working alongside this Warriors core. Flash forward to this season, and the story is the complete opposite. Again, as impressive as those box score numbers are, that's not what should be getting Warriors fans excited. It should be the success they're finding as a team with him on the court. Since Draymond came back, him and Kuminga have had a 12.7 net rating on the court together, the most exciting element of that being their 104.5 defensive rating. That changes everything. If the Warriors are effectively able to put out a Green Kuminga frontcourt on a nightly basis, this is a completely different team. But it might actually not just be Kuminga that's leading to so much success. There's another very key element in this run that the Warriors are in the middle of. Someone that's not just been a key in the team's success, but in the success of guys like Kuminga individually. The rookie Brandon Podziemski. Someone that's really starting to look like a match made in heaven for this group. And if you don't believe me, take a look at this. Since Draymond's return, the Warriors' most played lineup has been Curry, Podziemski, Wiggins, Kuminga, and Draymond. That 5-man lineup has a 123.3 offensive rating and a 100.9 defensive rating, combining for a 22.4 net rating. Utter domination. It's the second best net rated lineup in the entire league during this stretch of time, so it really shouldn't come as much of a surprise that the Warriors have gone 12-3 in their last 15 games. They're finding what's working, what's not, and they're doubling down on it. Now that's come at the cost of some players, most notably Kevon Looney and Klay Thompson. Klay is far from the defender he once was, but that's been the case really since his injury. The big issue presently has been his inconsistency offensively. His few games coming off the bench so far have made that pretty clear. In the first game, it looked like he had something to prove. He had been disrespected, and the decision might have just lit a fire under him.
Klay 3. Okay. Who's hot? Klay Thompson's hot!
He dropped 35 points against the Jazz, knocking in 7 threes. But then in the very next game, he scored 3 points against the Lakers. 3. He went 1 for 9 from the field. He's still a very valuable piece to this team, but as a streaky player that can have those 35.73 nights at any point, something that might be ideal coming off the bench. His departure from the starting lineup doesn't leave this massive void that Podziemski or anyone else has to come in and fill. What Podziemski brings in that aspect of the game is more than enough for this lineup as a whole. He's a really solid shooter who can have some of those blow-up games. So it's really the additional ball handling and playmaking alongside Draymond that potentially makes this swap so advantageous. They're able to play faster, take even more advantage of Curry off the ball, and dominate in transition. This is pretty much what some thought Chris Paul would be bringing to this team this season. But now instead they're able to get it out of someone whose superior size doesn't cause nearly the same lineup headaches. So here's where they are now. They've got a starting lineup playing at by far the highest level of any iteration so far this season, while also having a backcourt of Klay Thompson and Chris Paul coming off the bench. That at least appears to be a pretty good spot to be in. Now, another massive piece of this Warriors' recent success that needs to be mentioned is Andrew Wiggins finally getting things going. Since Draymond came back, he's been averaging 15 points with 54-46 splits. He is absolutely vital to this team. The value he brings from a lineup configuration standpoint cannot be understated. but unfortunately, once again, he's away from the team. It's being reported as tending to a serious family matter. He's widely expected to return this season, but no one knows exactly how long we should expect to see him away from this team, and with him out, we're actually seeing another massive role increase. This time it's Moses Moody, who's actually been inserted in the starting lineup these last 2 games without Wiggins, where he's been playing really solid, just adding to how promising this current run is. Now, with all this excitement surrounding the team, we do need to make it very clear, it's not like they're being looked at as some major threat to win the title. They currently sit with only 42-1 odds. That's compared to 17-1 before the season. There are still some serious questions for them when it comes to the playoffs, if they even make it there at all, as right now they're only the 10th seed in the Western Conference. One of the bigger questions for them is how they would match up with some of these top contenders across the league. As much success as they're finding with these small ball lineups, with Kuminga and Draymond in the frontcourt during the regular season, how would it hold up in the playoffs or play-in, matching up with guys like Jokic, AD, if they somehow made it all the way, Porzingis, Giannis, etc. It's obviously tough to say, as it's been less than 20 games with these two playing this well together. Then, as dominant as this team's appeared to be over the last month, closer examination adds a lot of key context. There hasn't been too many high-profile matchups, and over the course of the entire season, we've seen that they'll beat up on the bottom half teams of the league. They're 2-0 against the Jazz, 3-0 against the Blazers, 2-0 against the Rockets, against the Pistons, against the Wizards. They've been winning the games they're supposed to. Against the teams that currently have a less than 500 record, the Warriors are 16-1 on the season. Their only loss being a couple weeks ago against Atlanta. It's against the top teams in the league where things have really fallen apart for them. They managed to take down the Celtics in their one matchup this year, but they've gone 0-4 against Denver, 0-2 against Minnesota, 1-3 against OKC, 1-3 against Phoenix, 1-3 against the Clippers. Seeing that, it's hard not to be a little concerned about the validity of this run they're on. But maybe I'm crazy, maybe my eyes are deceiving me, but it does feel like this team is transforming in front of our eyes. That it's a way different team than it was to begin the season, even just a couple months ago. So even if things aren't as great as they initially seemed, they definitely have made the end of the season a whole lot more interesting.